Big day for news today. Obviously, a couple of days ago, we heard the news that the next update for the Icebreed Saga won't have voice acting in it. Why? Because COVID-19 has a lot of their talent at home. They don't want to risk bringing people into the studio and so on. But they wanted to push through with the release anyway, and so we are getting it. They confirmed that the title was going to be No Quarter. We did already know that for about a week now. But today, they gave us the press page plus a trailer, which is quite an interesting trailer because it has no voice acting in it. Someone in the YouTube comments mentioned it has some very Living World Season 1, Season 2 vibes, and I totally get what they're going at there. We'll watch that in just a moment. But also, it's an interesting trailer because it does show quite clearly where the map is and stuff. So we've known for ages now that it was going to be the Woodland Cascades, or known as the Verdant Cascades in Guild Wars 1. I did a little tour of that map. If you've missed that, I recommend you do check it out. The big difference, obviously, 250 years forwards, is there's a giant inland sea here. Now, I'm not a character that's explored Icebreed Saga right now, but we haven't really been able to visit this. The closest we ever got was right here with Bitterfrost way back in Season 3 now, and it looks like from the trailer we're going to be sort of along the shoreline here, and there'll be some returning places. Seems pretty interesting. A lot of people are talking about world versus world when it comes to this update. Well, because it really seems like a Silver Wasty style location we're headed to. Let's see what the devs themselves say. First on the press page, I'll close the video off with the trailer. And here's what they say. Release is going to be May 26th. The costs of the Charles Civil War are mounting as a steady stream of Legion troops, lured by overwhelming Dominion victories and propaganda, defect to join Bangar's forces. There may still be a chance to turn the tide, so rendezvous with Ritlock to join a parley with Krisha, the Legion Imperators, and Ryland. So we're hearing about this Dominion victory. The Dominion is the name that Bangar has given his own side in the conflict, in this looming Char Civil War. I can't believe that we're in the middle of dealing with these stories of a Char Civil War right now, because it's everything I really would have wanted about the Char. You know, that's such a big part of their history, falling apart without a true leader, a true Khana. And seeing where this will go is great. I love that they called this the Dominion. It's probably just because I'm a Star Trek Deep Space Nine fan, and the Dominion always seems so intimidating and scary to me. But we get to fight against the Dominion in Guild Wars 2 as well now. Now, what exactly makes up his forces? They're saying steady stream of Legion troops and so on. But when we watch the trailer, it looks like there might be something else going on. We'll see that in a second. So here's what they describe. They say that there's a new map and it's going to be called the Drizzlewood Coast. This dense and beautiful woodland is the stage for a brutal civil war between the Dominion and the United Legions. With diminished resources, strategy is key. Claim territory from enemy forces led by Ryland's Still Warband and push back the front lines in a map-wide meta event. So they're talking about resources and so on. The Silver Waste wasn't necessarily about resources, right? As much as it was just... I haven't been anywhere on this character. This was a PvP character, I think. The Silver Waste wasn't really about resources. I mean, there were certainly some little events to do with that, right? But mostly it was about just gaining a foothold and an entrance to the jungle where an Elder Dragon was. Here, I'm guessing, because the idea is it's so verdant, there's so many lush, nice trees and forests and things, we want the lumber, and we want, you know, whatever materials we can to fuel our war. And we kind of get to see a cool side of the Char, which is them kind of clearing stuff away and destroying things in the name of combat. So, yeah, we've known for years it as the Woodland Cascades, or the Verdant Cascades, but remember, that's the region name. That's like Crater. The map itself was always going to have a different name, and now we've got it. The Drizzlewood Coast. It seems weird to be looking at square in the eye now. It sounds nice. It sounds like a really pretty cool place to go to. And it looks alright in the trailer too. There's a new mastery, the United Legion's Way Station Synchronization. Very wordy. Let's hope it's got a clear and decent concept behind it. And they say, take advantage of United Legion's way stations throughout the Drizzlewood Coast and gain special action skills to aid you in the battle. So, multiple new special actions. The devs kind of fall into this a lot lately, don't they? I mean, increasingly as time's gone by, I think that designing decent and fun masteries has been really hard for them. But you look back as early as, what, Siren's Landing? Really, that was the first time they said, let's just give them some special actions. Let's just add some new temporary area-specific abilities for them. And this saga itself, that's kind of one of the things that they did. The masteries so far in the saga, the actual benefits they give you have been really convoluted and uninteresting to me, but the pace at which we get them and all that stuff has been pretty cool. There's another layer of complexity here too. We get a new mastery, but also The essence manipulation one we've been doing, they are expanding to tier 4, which allow you to use your special action skill on enemies regardless of their essence. So skills will chain to nearby enemies with bonus damage if their essence is aligned. So you still get a bonus from finding the correct target. That side of the game is still there, which I actually like that they preserved. Really, I never played into that as much as I wanted to. Whenever I've been playing Icebreed Saga so far, I just kind of run around, and if I see a special action pops up, I kind of press it, and I don't really think much. Now, maybe I'll think a little bit more. If you've got these groups of enemies that are kind of mixed bags, and you want to make sure that you get the AoE, right? AoE bonus damage, it sounds like, because they're chaining to nearby enemies. You'll pay a bit more attention to that. So this could be good. This could actually help that a lot. The T4 I do find interesting, and I'm going to say out the gate, I have found the balance, as I already said, very good in terms of like how much XP they're asking me to get. I do not go into Guild Wars 2 patches demanding that I have everything within the first day or two of doing it. I would like something more long term. And going to T4, in case you guys are completely out of the loop with this at this point, every time there's a new tier, they do expand the number of points you need to buy into it and the amount of experience it takes too. So I wonder what ArenaNet are doing here. I have a feeling they'll get a lot of whining on their hands with this patch because people will see that they have to play quite a lot of the game to go up to T4. And it won't matter to people that the perk doesn't even sound like necessary. They'll just be upset that they don't have something fast. And I'm going to go on the record right here and take a stand against that. I think that what Living World needs is something with a bit more longevity, and I'm excited to see how they do this. Will they stick to their guns, or will they acknowledge that because these are released in like these staggered episodes, maybe the way that masteries are bundled for expansions and expanding the tiers isn't going to work here? Maybe? I don't know. We'll see. So there's a new strike mission. This page's description of it is very different to what we'll see in the trailer in a second. And I want you guys to remember it. They just say, survive an onslaught from waves of Dominion forces, culminating in an intense final battle. So the idea of a wave assault strike mission is brilliant to me. I think that could work super well. The only form of strike mission that I'd be more excited about, honestly, is the idea of a Zaitan recreation from the scrying pool, where you get a proper final boss battle with him. But they describe this as Dominion forces. And what do we look there? It's like an Ice-Brewed Colossus, right? Among red-looking Char, Blood Legion Char. I mean, remember, the idea is not necessarily they're the Blood Legion here entirely. It's the Dominion. Is someone else going to take up the form of Blood Legion here as we go through the story? But yeah, so, you know, his whole game is like trying to get the dragon to bow down to him and control it. It looks like the dragon is fighting alongside him, at least to some degree. We'll see more of that in the trailer in a moment. And then finally, new rewards. 2 new weapon sets, 4-piece armor set inspired by the ceremonial garb of Norn bear shamans, a new emote, and more. So, for this one, I think the bear stuff has been in game since launch. It's one of those weird ones where the devs, like, created this kit. It looks really good on certain NPCs, but it was never available to the player base. And now I think it is becoming available. Which gear and which rewards are kind of high access, and which ones are the super rare ones, I guess we'll see. But you guys do need to remember that throughout the saga, they tend to have taken like 1 or maybe 2 items and made them really, really prestige. And, you know, these RNG drops that you might get, and you'll get insanely lucky, and it will fund all your endeavors in the game for like the next couple of years. Or it will be this skin that you just feel really badass for having because so few people have it. We don't know what is what, so I think that's always an interesting one before these releases come out. Bunch of screenshots. I'll probably use one of these in one of my thumbnails, and a reiteration about the sale that the game is on. Let's jump on into the trailer now and see what we got. All right, let's get stuck in. In a way, I'm really looking forward to this one, just because there's not going to be any voice acting in the background, which, as fun as these trailer analyses are to do, is usually a real pain to figure out exactly who was saying what and when and why, and at what point in the trailer, chronologically, do I want to actually splice in that discussion. Here, we've just got what's on screen, and that's it. It does feel different as a trailer, doesn't it? I mean, it feels worse, frankly, let's be honest. The trailer feels a lot lower budget, a lot, you know, thinner. I don't know what it is, except to say, obviously, there's no voice acting going on in the background, so it feels very old and it very naked. But obviously, it's all very forgivable, and I still stand by what I said in that previous video. The fact that they're releasing this patch, they're doing all of this with no VA, is commendable to me. It's brave and it's bold, and you might just say, well, look, they've got a bottom line they need to adhere to, and they have to keep going forwards. But I think that it shows they have some respect in the capacity for their audience to be a little bit forgiving, and we'll see whether they are. I did notice some grumpy comments on YouTube already that they needed to wait it out. I know it's very easy as well before the patch comes out as well for people like me and probably you in the comments think, no, it'll be fine. But I do want you guys to really imagine Guild Wars 2 with no voice acting. What you might not realize, especially in the open world, is just how often voice cues and stuff are playing about ambient dialogue and events that are going on nearby, or, you know, think about how much, especially when you're going through the main story now, even when you're in the open world, you're being delivered exposition and talking points through, like, that whole, you know, headset style thing, you know, Timey's voice device. That happens a lot. And now it's just going to be a white box there. I guess it won't be too bad because there'll be a lot of pre-existing dialogue, like your player character grunting as they use skills and talking about how they're faster than the centaur and stuff. That can all be the same. But the rest of the map, well, that's going to be interesting because it's not just the main story. It's everything about the map, right? They actually do record quite a lot. So we'll see. Anyway, the opening shot of the trailer, I actually thought this was really weak as an opening shot. This looks very 2012 to me. I mean, it's kind of cool that we've got Char and clearly what is one of their big broken machines. But I don't know, it's something about the assets that they're using. It feels like we're in Mount Maelstrom or something, you know, and we're just looking out. I could easily mistake that. But nonetheless, what I do think is quite curious is the fact that these guys are clearly glowing and looking a little bit magical here. And I'm guessing the story will go into that to some degree. These guys have found a bit of power. Another shot here, and this is kind of weird because it feels very 2012 in the front, but very 2018 in the back to me. Something to do with the depth of field, or, you know, this kind of architecture. It just feels really Path of Fiery. It does look nice, and obviously we get these nice fir trees. We've got another Char here. This guy instead is glowing green. So is this to do with, like, the, you know, the lighting setup that we had in the earlier areas of Icebrood Saga with those masteries and, like, the different colors now? They'll all be Dominion Char, but the Dominion Char are aligned to the different essences. We've also got these flags, and I have to be honest, I'm not lore nerd enough to know if this has existed before, or is this like a new symbol of the Dominion that is just coming in with this patch on these banners and these standards that we hadn't seen before. But yeah, so it's just a little bit of ambience, setting things up. So we get a little bit of text on screen. This, I'm sure, is what was going to be voiced in the background of the trailer, and we don't know who the voice it would have been. You know, sometimes you get interesting clues in the story, who narrates a thing. But so they just say civil war is upon us. I'm guessing it would have been Krisha saying this. That's what I believe. Or maybe it could have been Ritlock. But so civil war is upon us. Who is us? Well, the United Legions. So the United Legions is the faction of Char that we, the commander, are very, very likely to be a part of. Obviously, we've got the known Emperor is here. We've got Smoder. We've got, I think this is the commander himself sitting in this chair. Krisha, the Flame Legion being represented, and Ash. And looks like some kind of, this is probably the parley that is mentioned at the head of the press page that we read earlier, which is probably the very opening of the patch. They usually do that, right? We'll log in, we'll hear that we've been invited to listen in on this speaking. And we got Ritlock sneaking back in the background there. And so we're against Bangar's Dominion forces, who is looking mighty cheesed off. And they move on. So I think this was really tricky to do, probably, in the trailer. And this will be weird to experience with no VA. I don't want to linger on that too much. So they just sort of watch him walk off. He leaves the negotiating table. You know, they don't have to really rub that in any further. Clearly, we have not reached any kind of treaty here. And so the fighting begins. So the Drizzlewood coast, and immediately what you can see is a territory, a cap location, and I'm guessing that this is going to be a bit like, say, one of the forts in the Silver Wastes. Looks like we're in a vaguely closed off, fenced-in place. Maybe once this is captured, we can defend it in certain ways, much like the Silver Waste, or much like how in World vs. World you can kind of upgrade and fortify locations. Perhaps we can actually build these bridges all along. In a way, this reminds me a bit of Gendaran Fields, and it reminds me a bit of Beetleton and so on, you know, where you could defend it from the invading centaurs. But obviously, we've got different stuff going on here. Looks like there's artillery, as you just saw, that can be destroyed. I'm sure that actually factors into the events in some way. People clearly attacking the actual wall here, and probably in the same place. And that area looked very swampy as well, for its worth, which maybe makes sense. You would imagine that a region like this, close as it is to Kryta, feels a little bit Crichton in places. Obviously, the more disparate the devs can make it look, the better. We see the introduction of the Icebrood Saga. We see the lighthouse. This is actually very similar to the lighthouses we've seen elsewhere in the game. Again, Bloodtide Coast springs to my mind at Stormbluff Isle. A little bit of an underwater section, sunken Char submarine. I'd like to see them do more stuff with the submarines, because even back in 2012 with the Iron Barracuda and stuff, you've seen that they can like hook up destruction animations on them and stuff. When we visit Draconis Mons in Season 3, we actually moved there with that cool little cutscene with that submarine. The idea that this is actually being used as a part of the events is cool. The Straits of Devastation, obviously, is probably one of the best examples. Glitchy and weird as it is, if you go back and play those events, it's very strange, but you can actually swim along with the submarines doing a bit of a D-Day style thing. And speaking of Straits, this here, extremely reminiscent to the Northern Assault at Straits, where you fire the golems out of cannons to sort of bombard a territory. But the shot is so short. Let's rewind a little bit here. The shot is so short that I'm not really convinced they are golems. Let's watch it again. I mean, what are they? They are things arcing towards the camera, right? They are landing down. And what's with the cards as well? Sorry, I keep right-clicking. What's with these cards? Oh, I think I know what this is. They suggest... Yeah, look, okay. I think that this is the emblem of the Dominion, as we suggested earlier. And I think that this is some kind of propaganda initiative, because they talked in the press page a little bit about the idea that, like, where's he getting his forces? Clearly he has to be convincing people and getting them to his side. So I think that these are getting, like, fired over cities, you know, a la, like, World War II, when places are blockaded in Europe, and they're basically just throwing flyers into these bombarded, war-torn places, trying to convince you of one thing or another. That World War II example I'm thinking of, didn't they drop porn into various towns and seas? In any case, yeah, I think that's what this is, and maybe it's our job as the player to stop that. That's really inspired. I like that a lot. Okay, so one of the coolest shots of the trailer here. The map-wide meta event is called Battle Cry. And, well, what we see here, these boxes... This is just like what they do in World vs. World now with the territories overlay. So grey is like a neutral area, as yet unclaimed. Red is for one team. Blue is for the other. So this is more, you know, Silver Waste was kind of mimicking World vs. World in as much as, you know, you had these forts and places where you could build the walls up and stuff. But this seems even further, you know, if Silver Waste was kind of spoofing World vs. World of the day, then this is World vs. World of today. Some people naturally have started to wonder, well, hold on, is this going to be like a PvP map? Are we actually going to be able to align one way or the other? I really don't think so. Now, I think the devs have been really bold and interesting and explorative with PvP this season. Obviously, if you fail the meta events in the Bureau Marches, you can actually participate in open world PvP in PvE for the first time in Guild Wars 2. Well, okay, and then there's kind of the guild hall arenas and stuff. But in general, they're doing interesting stuff like that. But I do not think that this saga has, like, a choice of, are you going to be the good guy or the bad guy? Or, you know, that's just a matter of perspective, but you get what I'm saying. I think that it is going to be PvE, but it's just going to feel like World versus World as much as possible. And so we get a couple of little icons here as well, which no doubt refer to very specific locations. And I'm interested mostly to see how the push-pull will work here. Because for this map to be really fun, I would want to see places flipping on and off. But so far in Guild Wars 2, things tend to be not calibrated that tightly. And it's just a matter of like a time gate waiting for everything to flip in your favor. I think that would be a bit lame. You know, the map I actually think did this style of thing the best is not the Silver Wastes. And it's not even like Dragon Fall. Dragon Fall was a bit like this. And Dragon Stand as well, hell, even was a bit like this. But I think that Lake Doric was really, really cool. Because Lake Doric genuinely had a flow to it where if the NPCs managed to secure a beachhead or something, then multiple new dynamic events would like naturally spiral off and they'd capture other locations. There was a real back and forth going there. But because of the way that the rewards were set up and how we kind of passed through those maps very fast, it never really stuck about long term. And now, that's actually kind of a brutal map to go back to. So I wonder what we'll be experiencing here. There's a good chance, guys, that the best way to experience this map will be to play this patch at some point here in this year, 2020. This is at a risk, like Lake Doric, I think, of being one of those iffy maps years into the future that doesn't feel like it has a place. Until ArenaNet, you sort out your daily system and like a weekly system, which properly incentivizes players en masse to go back to individual areas of the game. If they ever do that, then these long-term problems kind of melt away, I think. But this kind of is a weird one. Some people think it's going to just be like the new Silver Waste and people will be there forever. But, you know, guys, that's not really a new observation and it's not a novel one. People have made that statement about, you know, everything, really. Dragon Fall is probably the last time that it was particularly relevant. How many people are still fighting Kralkatorrik? That'd actually be really interesting to look at. I think that the idea of the Season 4 train is very cool, and whether a train could exist for Icebrood Saga when all is said and done, and how that would hook into this. The other thing I would say is the map art for this, like, I don't know whether it's just the color grading or what. It feels like ore, doesn't it? Or maybe, again, because it's that whole territory thing. You know, we've seen so many variations of this over the year. But if you're wondering, hold on, is this really the Verdant Cascades? It is. This is the inland sea, guys, on the right. This is it. I opened this video showing you all. And we can see, for what it's worth as well, a couple of locations that you might recognize from the first game. Down here, for example, the Vloxen Mine, known as the Vloxen Excavations in Guild Wars 1. It's amazing. Icebrood Saga, guys, is like the Eye of the North, like, go-over. Just as, like, Path of Fire was returning to Nightfall, and this next expansion is going to be returning to Cantha, like 99% sure it's going to be. Icebrood Saga is just constantly going back to Eye of the North locations. It's kind of funny, and it's so obvious now. But what does that mean is so often they go to an Eye of the North location on the overworld, and there's these dungeons. And it's like, well, what do we do, you know? Do we let them go into the Ooze Pit, or do we turn it into an event? Do we let them go into the catacombs of Cathandrax, or do we go close enough to the Ragar's Menagerie? Or what do we do when we get to the Shiver Peaks? You know, we see that they actually split that off and turn that into a full mission. Are we going to be able to explore the Vloxen Mines? At the risk of sounding like a broken record, because every single video I've done like this on the saga so far, I don't know, but it would be cool. You got the Umbral Grotto here as well, now marked by a whole region. This, of course, was the safe outpost. Petraj Overlook. Now, this one's really cool because that was a Tengu boss that you could fight in this area of the world. And now there's a whole overlook named after him. Suggests that even though there's nothing in the trailer really looking them dead in the eye, there could be something going on with the Tengu here. Like, what was so prominent about that guy that the whole area is named after him now? And you'll see that one of the weapon sets we can unlock is Tengu weapons from this patch. So that's very cryptic and interesting to me. Port Cascadia. Don't we have a Fort Cascadia? Or Fort Cascade in Guild Wars 2? Breakroot Basin, Fort Defiance. And, well, if you guys really want a good sense, again, of this location, just a few weeks ago, I did a full Guild Wars 1 tour for you guys of it. And if you're watching my channel in general at the moment, you'll know that Guild Wars 1's had some amazing updates. Might be worth just going back and playing through Eye of the North. I mean, it will probably serve you in good sense, in good stead, the way that this Icebrood Saga has been going along. So they kind of melt through with this nice transition here. Get a look at a fort. Get a look at just some generic battling on a hillside. You know, this all feels very Norn to me. It's definitely the kind of homesteads and locations that we've got here. I wouldn't be surprised if we found that the Norn had been living in this area of the world. Kind of a cool shot here of someone on a sky scale up there. Looks almost like a statue of some kind. And just some general overarching shots. Now, this one's the coolest one, I think. because it does show this big, beautiful, badass bridge with these chains. I wonder if this is a full-on drawbridge that can open and close. And I equally wonder then whether they'll do one of those things where a section of the map is locked off until you beat the meta, and this is that section. You know, I'm now wondering, I've really got to go back and play the most recent patch more. I've done that mission like twice. Did we go past a bridge like this in that mission? Was that overlapping with this area of the world? Someone can tell me in the comments. More general battling. Char tanks going on. I mean, we saw some of them do some cool stuff this year in the saga, like with the demolition derby and stuff. If we could get back in those cars as a part of the actual fighting, that'd be amazing. And the helicopters, even the Charcopters, even carrying them off. Still one of my dreams with Guild Wars 2, still to this day, is to have a sense of piloting one of these things. I would love it if they found a way to make that work. And I know that sounds crazy, but does it? Now that we're in a world with like the sky scale and stuff, like they could totally pull something like that off. Oh man, if players, you know, like how in Heart of Thorns players could become exalted armors and you felt like these big, massive, you know, elements of the battlefield. Do that again, ArenaNet, but let us be in a Charcopter. That'd be so cool. And I get to like airdrop things in and out. So the new mastery, I guess this is a way station and they're giving us these packs, which I guess means that the special actions are going to be demolition related somehow. Reminds me a lot of the Terminator, April Fool's, Guild Wars quest line that they added to Guild Wars 1 in its closing years. So actually I say demolition, but this here, this animation, I think this is clearly it in use. Looks like some kind of stack discharge, disable people. And then there's another one here. Maybe there's multiple types because that one does look like it's some sort of explosion. We get the new rewards, which I'm sure the fashion-wise players will pause and be very interested in. But then we get the other side of the set. For what it's worth as well, I think this is an interesting way for the trailer makers to show off full weapon sets. To be honest, since their money is in Black Lion stuff a lot of the time, I'm surprised they don't do this with Black Lion skins, you know? Like, get a bunch of different toons lined up with complementary outfits and stuff that actually wield and demo the full set. I think that works really well, and we haven't really seen them do it much. The new emote as well here, Play Dead. Oh, hold on. Let me rewind. Did I just miss, written at the bottom of the screen, exactly what the name of the stuff is? Yeah, Tengu, Echo, and Stormcaller weapon sets. There you go. It is Tengu, but Tengu Echo. Interesting. So they are adding a Tengu weapon set here. The Tengu weapons were amazing in Guild Wars 1. Partly it was just because they were quite big. I wonder whether they'll link that into the story in some way. The new emote here, Play Dead. Generally, I'm pretty lukewarm to the new emotes, but this one's more interesting to me than Shiver. Might be something for the role players out there, if you're still around and playing during the Icebreed Saga and there's something going on with that. Some more weapons, armor. This is the bear stuff, which, by the way, is pretty cool, because before, you know, it was in game, but it was only on Norn. Now you get to see how it looks on a Char and the other various races. They don't actually demo it on a human here. Unless this guy's a human and not a Norn. He's probably a Norn, right? He's pretty tall. It's kind of hard to see because it was sloped. And then we get these helmets. So here they show the Cold War, one of the earlier things I was talking about. First of all, the Charcopter with the laser beam, I think is a really interesting take. But on the press page, they say we're fighting against Dominion forces. On the trailer, it's clearly a lot of Icebreed stuff, right? So obviously there is some kind of connection going on there. Obviously, to some degree, Bangar has found some mechanism to manipulate the dragon. Or the dragon is manipulating him. That's the big question of the saga, I suppose. And I guess the in-game stories will continue to teach us about that. So there you have it, guys. That's No Quarter. It's coming out May 26th. Not too far away now. And it will be an interesting one. I do want to reiterate, though, it's releasing with no voice acting. There will be voice acting eventually. It's not permanently never going to have it. They do want to add it in the end. Whether that will mean there's going to be a knock-on effect between the wait for No Quarter and the one after, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. But that's it from me, guys. For now, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you for another video very soon. Take care now, guys.